fitness regimen that you do?
Oh, I do, and it does get harder every year. And I work out and try and eat right and just do everything in moderation.
Television legend Loni Anderson left a powerful mark on our hearts when news broke that she had died on August 3, 2023, at a hospital in Los Angeles. Fans everywhere felt stunned. She was 79 years old, just 2 days away from celebrating her 80th birthday. That nearly magical milestone, so close and so full of life, instead became a moment of quiet sorrow for her loved ones. As the news spread, there was an immediate hush. Her bright smile, her effortless charm on screen suddenly gone. It felt impossible. One moment, the person who had entertained us for so long was there, and the next, she had slipped away quietly. Her family's announcement, carried by the Associated Press, was brief but heavy with emotion. They said they were heartbroken to share this loss. Those words carried the weight of every role she ever played, every scene she lit up, every memory she had etched into our collective mind. What made the moment even more poignant was how little was said about why she passed. Instead of a medical breakdown, there was only a gentle phrase: prolonged illness. No details attached.
The TV icon died yesterday at a Los Angeles hospital. Today there is mystery about what exactly killed the actress. Anderson's publicist saying only she died after a prolonged illness.
Nothing to explain the what. It was as if her final public chapter was written in whispers rather than headlines. But recently, the full autopsy report has been released, and the details it contains, they're stunning. They're tender and painful. Even longtime fans say they've never felt quite the same. It isn't gossip. It isn't sensational tabloid chatter. It's honest, emotional, and surprisingly raw. You'll find yourself pausing, reflecting, feeling something deeper than just curiosity. So let's sit together with this story. Let's slow down. These aren't sound bites to rush past. These are the last notes of a melody that deserves to be heard fully. When the news of her passing broke, people stopped. Friends, fans, and neighbors, everyone seemed to hold their breath, viewing screens turned off for a moment. Who wouldn't? The woman whose warmth beamed from so many televisions for years, she was like a friendly presence in our homes. And then, unexpectedly, she wasn't there anymore. She died at a Los Angeles hospital on August 3, 2023. Her 80th birthday was just days away, a moment that could have been filled with laughter, family gatherings, stories of her rich life, candles on a cake. Instead, her family stood in sorrow and shared their grief publicly. That statement, 2 words, heartbroken, passing, felt so simple, yet carried the weight of decades. But the family chose not to explain much. That decision made people wonder, was that silence on purpose? Was it her wish, or their way of protecting her memory from endless speculation? Today, as the autopsy report comes into the light, those questions hit even harder. Some of what we now know reaches deep into the emotional core, so much so that fans say they'll never look at her quite the same way again. In today's world of celebrity news, when someone dies, the public often quickly hears all the details, the diagnosis, the timeline, sometimes even the medical notes. But that wasn't the case here. Instead, the only explanation ever offered came in those 2 quiet words: prolonged illness. Every time her longtime publicist, Cheryl J. Kagan, spoke, she used that same phrase. No mention of names of illnesses, no deeper explanations, and for some, that vagueness caused frustration. They wanted clarity and understanding. But to others, it felt like an act of dignity. Loni had given so much of herself to the public. Perhaps in these final moments, she wanted something that was hers alone to stay private. There's also the question of how open she had been in other areas of her life, especially regarding health. She had spent years advocating for COPD awareness. She knew the toll respiratory diseases could take. She had witnessed it in her parents, both of whom dealt with serious breathing issues. Yet, at the end, she left that part of her life unspoken. Maybe that quietness, that lack of detail, was the last tribute to herself, a refusal to be defined by illness. For fans, that felt bittersweet. In a way, they were left remembering Loni not for a string of symptoms or medical terms, but for laughter, for roles that brought joy, for the kindness of her advocacy. And perhaps that's how she would have wanted it, remembered as the light she brought, not by how she left, but by how she lived. Now that the autopsy report is public, people are pausing in a different way. Some details are delicate, others, frankly, are jarring. Some parts feel full of empathy. Other parts feel so direct they stop you cold. This isn't sensationalism. It's the quiet, dignified ending to a life that sparkled for so many. And to hear the final lines of that story with their mixture of tenderness and intensity, it's hard not to feel changed by it. Still, no grand statements will sweep this under. No gossip tag, no flashy headline, just the truth of her final chapter, laid bare. That's where the power lies, in the honesty. And yes, it might leave you thinking long after you've stepped away. By the time she passed, Loni Anderson wasn't just a television icon, she was a fixture in people's lives. Generation after generation recognized her. So, when she died, and there was almost no explanation, that gap bit deep. Even though people loved her for her roles, she had also made a place in their hearts as a person, someone whose voice they'd known, whose smile had brightened days. Many expected to learn more about her final struggle, wanted to understand what she faced. But instead, there was silence, and given her long-standing vocal support for health causes, it felt especially unexpected. She had championed COPD awareness. She had spoken up about multiple sclerosis after her daughter's diagnosis. She'd offered courage, knowledge, hope. So why keep her own illness so private? Perhaps because she had spent years lifting up others. Maybe now, in her final act, she chose to take a step back and protect her family, her memory, herself. Even so, her family's subtle request for memorial donations to groups related to lung health or cancer research felt like a quiet clue, a gentle nudge, a breadcrumb left behind. But even that was so understated, it took a moment to realize what it might mean. Ultimately, they offered nothing flashy. No explanations plastered across the media. Just that gentle redirect. Remember her by giving, by supporting something meaningful. It felt just like her. Generous, but never showy. Despite the illness she never named publicly, Loni's battle spanned years. Her publicist described it as an acute, prolonged illness. Those words sounded medical, but when you think about all she did during that time, they mean something much more. She didn't vanish. She continued to work. In 2023, she appeared in Ladies of the 80s, a diva's Christmas, sharing the screen with fellow icons Morgan Fairchild, Linda Gray, Donna Mills, and Nicolette Sheridan. Even when illness weighed her down, she stayed committed to her art. She showed up. That determination, that unwillingness to let anything steal her joy that, too many, felt like the real Loni Anderson. Her advocacy never stopped either. She had lost both parents to COPD in their 50s and 60s. She had spoken about how deeply that affected her. She used her platform to raise awareness, visiting senior living centers, listening to stories, offering empathy. It wasn't publicity, it was purpose. And then, when her daughter Deidre was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2009, her world shifted again. She was upfront about how hard that was, how crumbling it felt at first. But then she found her strength again and became an advocate for MS research. She spoke openly, urged families not to lose hope, insisted that progress was still being made. Daily, her courage wasn't limited to her own life, it extended to helping others carry theirs to. So, when we remember her, yes, we see the glamorous television star, but we also see more. A woman who never let illness define her, who worked until the very end, and who turned personal pain into passion for helping others. That more than any role became her legacy. From the very beginning, Loni was someone you didn't forget. She carved out a place for herself that went beyond screen presence. It was personality and power wrapped together. In the late 1970s, She landed her iconic role, Jennifer Marlowe, on WKRP in Cincinnati. On paper, a glamorous receptionist might seem like a simple part, but Loni turned Jennifer into something bold and unexpected. She told the show's creator, "Let's make her look like Lana Turner and be the smartest person in the room." That line wasn't just clever, it spoke volumes. Jennifer wasn't there to fetch coffee or fade into the background. She was the station's highest paid staffer. She demanded attention. She made people think and laugh at the same time. That shift resonated with audiences. Here was a character who was glamorous and bright, both beauty and brains. Women loved it. Men watched and noticed. The accolades followed. 2 Emmy nominations and 3 Golden Globe nominations. It wasn't just what she did. It was how she did it on her own terms. Her personal life was as much in the spotlight as her career. After working with Burt Reynolds on Stroker Ace in 1983, their relationship became headline news. They married in 1988, adopted a son named Quinton, and looked like a textbook Hollywood romance. But as the mid-1990s came, the picture changed. Their divorce was among the most talked about of the decade. Reynolds claimed Loni shopped to excess and had racked up massive credit card charges in minutes. Loni, in turn, accused him of physical abuse tied to his addiction to painkillers. The legal battle dragged on for years, full of public details and raw emotion. Finally, in 2015, Reynolds settled the matter by paying Loni $154,520, a sum that brought that storm to some close. What followed might surprise people. Loni found an entirely different kind of love. She reconnected with Bob Flick, a musician she'd met way back at a movie premiere in Minneapolis in 1963. At the time, it was just 2 young people crossing paths, but decades later, they found each other again. It wasn't about showbiz or fame, it was about companionship. Simple and deep. They married in 2008. Their cake had a sweet touch, the photo from the night they first met. A moment frozen in time. Now celebrated a new dot. So what do we carry with us when we think of Loni Anderson? We recall the laughter, the sparkle, the confidence. But we also remember the softness, how she faced hardship with grace, how she stayed grounded through illness, how she made her personal battles a catalyst for helping others. Her story wasn't just about the characters she played. It was about how she lived her life with warmth, with integrity, with generosity. She was glamorous, but never pretentious. She was strong, but tender. She fought for others while fighting her own battles quietly. Her final days might have closed her story away from the public eye, but that silence spoke in its own way. It invited us to focus on who she was rather than how she left. And now, with the autopsy report adding layers of understanding, we can honor her in full, celebrating the brilliance, the bravery, and the beautiful spirit that she shared with the world. As you reflect on her life, maybe think of that final scene, not one scripted, but the one she lived out. A woman who faced everything with courage, ended quietly, and left a legacy that still glows. Unlike many of her earlier relationships that were highly public and often dramatic, Loni Anderson's marriage to Bob Flick was very different. It was private, steady, and far away from the gossip columns. They were not the couple to flaunt their love in front of cameras or make headlines for scandals. Instead, they focused on things that mattered to them, attending charity events, supporting causes close to their hearts, and enjoying each other's company. They shared a life away from the noise of fame. Their marriage lasted an incredible 17 years, right until Anderson's passing. In an industry known for short-lived romances and breakups, theirs was a love that endured. It was calm, it was solid, and it seemed to give her the peace she may not have always found before. For Anderson, after years of challenges and attention, perhaps that stability was her true happy ending. But, as with all stories, endings bring reflection. And when she passed away, the reaction around the world showed just how loved and respected she truly was. People everywhere began to speak up, share memories, and honor her in ways that were both touching and powerful. When the news of Loni Anderson's death spread, it felt as though the entertainment world paused. Television channels, online platforms, newspapers, and social media all lit up with tributes. Fans, colleagues, and friends wanted to share their admiration and grief. She wasn't just another actress, she was a presence, a personality who left a mark both on screen and off. Messages came from everywhere. Barbara Eden, famous for her role in I Dream of Jeannie, said she was absolutely stunned and heartbroken. She described Loni's intelligence and wit, mentioning how hard she worked and how smart she truly was. It was clear she admired not only Loni's beauty, but also her mind and dedication. Morgan Fairchild, who appeared with Anderson in the 2023 Lifetime movie Ladies of the 80s, A Diva's Christmas, said Loni was one of the genuinely nicest ladies I've ever worked with, coming from someone who had been in the industry for decades. That was high praise. Tim Reed, known to fans as Venus Flytrap from WKRP in Cincinnati, where he starred alongside her, spoke of her warmly. One of the dearest friends I've had in my life's journey. It's rare for co-stars to maintain such affection years after a show ends, but it seemed their bond had been real. Even Tor I. Spelling, who knew Loni in later years, said she represented kindness, humbleness, and pure grace. Those qualities can be hard to maintain when you've lived under a spotlight for so long. Yet Loni seemed to carry them effortlessly. All these tributes painted a picture that went beyond Hollywood glamour. They showed a woman who not only entertained, but touched lives, someone whose kindness stayed with people long after the cameras were off. Throughout her career, Anderson stood out as more than just a familiar face. She became an example of how a woman could create her own path in an industry that often tried to control her image. Dr. Rhonda Gerlich, a professor at Hofstra University, once described her as a brilliant mix of old Hollywood glamour and 1970s feminism. Those words captured something unique. Anderson could play the glamorous starlet, but she was also independent and smart. She wasn't afraid to take control of how she was seen. She often showed that beauty and intelligence were not opposites. She could walk into a room looking like a movie star, but think and plan like a business leader. She understood how Hollywood worked and knew how to use it to her advantage. Many women were told they had to choose between being admired for their looks or being respected for their brains. Anderson quietly challenged that idea, proving you could be both. This confidence was clear from at the beginning. Colleagues remembered how she carried herself calm, self-assured, and focused. She didn't wait for others to define her. If someone underestimated her, she used it as a strength, learning and observing until it was her turn to shine on screen. She often played characters who were glamorous, but she always added something more. There was a spark, a sense that these women were clever, witty, and in control. She didn't just read lines, she lived her roles. Audiences could feel that there was more to her characters than beauty. They had layers, humor, and intelligence. Critics noticed this too. She gave each role something unique, whether it was comedy, warmth, or quiet strength. That's why her work stayed memorable. Behind every character, people could see Loni herself smart, elegant, and sharp. Hollywood is known for labeling actors and actresses, often typecasting them. But Anderson resisted that. She wasn't going to be trapped by other people's expectations. She picked projects carefully, asking herself if the role would help her grow or show something new. If it didn't, she had no problem saying no. She also treated her career like a business. She was involved in decisions, asked questions, and wanted to know details others might ignore. It wasn't common for actresses to focus on contracts, branding, and long-term strategy, but she did. That control over her career made her stand out even more. Anderson's ability to mix old Hollywood style with modern independence inspired many. Young women looked at her and thought, if she can do it, maybe I can too. She showed that strength and beauty could work together, that you didn't have to fit one narrow definition. She carried herself with quiet confidence. She didn't seem desperate for approval. She already knew her worth. That self-belief gave her power. Friends said she was determined but patient. If one opportunity didn't work out, she found another way. Dr. Gerlich's words described her perfectly: a woman who was both glamorous and strong, who understood the value of image, but also the power of intelligence. She proved that women could lead, make choices, and be respected without giving up their femininity. In the end, her career wasn't just about fame or awards. It was about showing that you could be admired and respected at the same time. That you could be the star in front of the camera and the thinker behind it. Beyond the spotlight, she was a family woman. She is survived by her husband Bob Flick, daughter Deidre, son Quinton, and grandchildren Mackenzie, Megan, Felix, and Maximilian. Her longtime manager Steve Sauer described her best. Loni was a class act, beautiful, talented, witty, and always a joy to be around. She was the ultimate working mother, putting family first while maintaining a successful career. Her story is one of balance, strength, and grace. It's about loving deeply, working hard, and staying true to yourself. It's about leaving behind not only roles on television, but memories, lessons, and inspiration that will live on.